Very good evening to all of you, and welcome to the 10th episode of the program. Today, we are going to talk about how you build your company, how to expand it. And we have our first speaker line up, Danica Pereira. And after that, we will look at industrial disputes. Like when you build your company, you will run into like issues in your company in terms of handling your human resources, right? Without knowing the law of the land and how to deal with your employees, right? So for that, we have Mr. Vajra Lepola to talk to you after Danica. All right. So let me first introduce Danica. So Danica is a change-making entrepreneur, and he has created several software products to date, including Helakuru, PayHere, HelloPay, and Asana. I'm sure you are familiar with these software products and you're using it on daily basis. And you are going to meet the creator of all these software products today. And he has commercially deployed them quite successfully. And Danica is the CEO of Bar Shalanka Private Limited, his own company. He has done this before you some time back, right? So he can share his experience with you, how to do things right in your when you engage in a business startup, right? In fact, Danica accidentally became an entrepreneur. He was following his engineering undergraduate degree at University of Mortua, and suddenly he found himself an entrepreneur, right? He unleashed the entrepreneur in him. So Danica received many awards, including the M South Asia Award, Most Innovative ICT Entrepreneur, Iswabhimani, and National Best Quality Software Award. This is just a few. He has so many in his bag. He holds a bachelor's degree in computer science and engineering from University of Moratuwa and a master's degree in business administration from the University of Srijavadrapura. So Danica, without any further ado, let me call you upon to deliver your presentation.
Thank you, Professor. Let me share my screen. Okay, so good evening, everyone. And it's a pleasure to be here. And it's great about this opportunity to share with you my experiences and share your knowledge on this National Entrepreneurship Development Program. So today, the topic is actually scaling up your business, right? So I'm going to give you the knowledge as well as share my few experiences, how we as a business scaled up using the things that I share with you today. So I'm sure that from the previous sessions, you have been actually learned how you can actually create a startup, right? Develop a startup, identifying a problem or a market gap and come up with innovative ideas, creative ideas to come up with solutions, in terms of products or services, right? And how you actually can, build a successful business out of that, right? So in that startup stage, your main focus, or actually the main challenge is actually searching for a scalable business model, right? I mean, when you come up with a successful product or a service, right? Then your challenge is actually to find the right business model for that, right? A way to monetize or way to financially sustain that, right? And once you do that, once you actually found a valid business model for your product or service, then actually you can move from startup stage to then to the scale up stage, right? So in the scale up stage, your challenges are different, right? So you have already identified your business model, right? Validated your business model. But in the scale up stage, your main challenge would be actually how you grow, exponentially with your product or service, and actually how you can gain the market share, right? How you can develop your market, right? So in this discussion, today's discussion, we are actually talking about how you can do this, right? How you can actually move from the startup stage to the scale up stage, and how you can actually uh, face the challenges in the scale up stage, and how you can overcome that. Okay. So first, it's very important to learn what is actually the difference between this growing versus scaling, right? Now, these are two terms, right? We can grow a business and we can scale a business, right? The main difference is growing means actually, I mean, when you grow your business, your revenues grow as well as your costs also grow, right? At a similar pace, right? For example, if you consider about now, if your business is actually selling a good, right? Selling a good, or even selling a service, right? Now, when you actually get high demand from the customers, you actually have to produce more goods, and also you have to, I mean, you have to bear the similar phase of cost, right? Even if you are a traditional business kind of, like a saloon or something like that, right? You have to, I mean, if your demand is growing, if you have more sales, your cost will also grow. You have to hire more employees, you have to hire more staff members to cater that demand. So your revenue, when your revenue grows, your costs also grow at the same pace, right? Because that's actually growing. But scaling is different. Scaling is actually growing your revenue, keeping your cost at a low level, right? Right? Or at a low rate. Costs are growing at a low rate, but revenues are growing high, right? In other terms, it's actually maximizing the profit with a minimum investment, right? With a minimum investment. So in other terms, you can see growth is like this, right? It's actually like a straight line. Your revenue grows, your cost also grows, right? In terms of time, it's like this, right? But if you scale your business, you can actually grow exponentially, right? And today we are actually discussing not about growing, but about scaling your business, right? So scaling means taking a successful idea, product, or a service and expanding it to reach more customers and markets, right? So note these underlined words, right? It should be a successful idea, product, or a service, right? It should be successful means you have already been, gain the market attraction, you build a customer base, and, find the right business model, right? And you maybe break even with your business, right? So you take that successful idea, product, or service, and then actually you expand it to reach more customers or markets, right? It can be more customers in the same market, or it can be different markets, reaching more different markets, right? And simply, scaling means actually growing smartly, not actually just growing, but growing smartly. So if you grow smartly, you can achieve that exponential growth, right? Okay. So next we will discuss why we scale our business. Now you suppose that you actually come up with an idea and build a startup, build a product or service and build a startup out of that. And then the question comes, why actually you should scale your business, right? It can be different. It can be for different reasons, right? One reason may be your demand may increase with the time, right? Now, you start as a a small business, catering few customers, right? But if your product is good enough, you will start actually getting more demand with the time, right? So when you get more demand, when your demand increases, you should be able to cater that demand, right? You should be you should scale your business in order to cater that increased demand, right? So for example, from our case, right? Now, when I built Helakuru as a university undergraduate 12 years ago, right? It had actually 0 users initially, right? But with the time, it actually grew from 0 to 100 users, 100 to 1,000 users, 1,000 to million, 1 billion users, right? And 1 million users to 5 million users, 5 million users to 10, 12 million users, right? So when that users are growing, when now if it is a digital product, it may be your users who use your digital product, software, right? Or if it is a physical product or a service, it may be actually your physical customers who actually get your product or purchase your product or service, right? So in any case, if your demand is growing, you should actually scale your business in order to handle that demand, right? So in terms of our case, it was a digital product, Helakuru. So when the user base is growing, users are growing, we have to actually scale our infrastructure, scale our technologies, uh, scale our holistically scale our business operation, right, to meet that demand, right? And another reason may be to expand the market reach. You may be actually at the startup stage, you may be actually catering to some market segment, right? And then actually you will want to reach more market segments or more market different markets, right? It can be actually, based on the demography of the customers, or maybe actually based on the what type of customers, maybe it's consumers, maybe it's businesses, B2C or B2B, likewise, or maybe geographically to expand your market reach. If you only cater the local market currently, you will have to scale your business to cater other markets, foreign markets, right? So from our examples, Pay Here, initially actually we partnered up with only one bank, and we could actually serve those who have accounts in that bank only, right? We could provide our payment gateway services only if the merchant, our customer, owns a bank account at that bank, right? And then actually we had the need, we came to a level that we had the need that we want to, push that limit and make available our service to anyone, any merchant in the country, right? Who owns a bank account at any bank, right? So at that time we had to scale. We had to scale to expand our market reach, right? And also, if it is a physical business, you maybe also have to scale your business to achieve economies of scale, right? Economies of scale means, now in terms of physical business, this is not relevant to most of the digital business, but in terms of physical business, economies of scale means you can actually lower your cost, lower your unit cost if you actually increase your production volume. Now, suppose you are a small firm and you actually produce only few number of products, right? Your output volume is low. Your cost may be high, relatively high. Unit cost may be relatively high. But if you actually produce that in a larger volume, you will be able to lower down that cost. We call it that as economies of scale. So to achieve that also, you may want to scale your business, right? If it is if you're actually producing a physical good, especially, right? And also some businesses may want to scale the business to attract investors, right? Some investors may not be attracted to your business in your startup stage, and they may be actually looking whether you are scaling up to invest in your business, right? So in that case also, you will have to scale up your business, and also finally to stay competitive, right? Because if your competitors scale up, and if you are not, you will not be able, you will lose in the competition, right? So to be competitive in the market, you will there also you will have to scale business, right? When you actually scaling your business, when you actually take the decision to scale your business, right? When you actually scaling, there are actually common challenges and obstacles that you may be facing when you scaling up your business, right? And these are some of them. One thing is there can be resource constraint. Now, when you actually scale your business, you will need more resources, right? Resources in terms of you will need more funds, right? You will need more capital. You will need more, infrastructure. machines, equipments, if it is a physical business, right? Or server infrastructure, and the digital infrastructure if it is a digital product, right? And also you may need actually more staff, more team members, right? More expertise, more management layers, right? Likewise, you will need more human resources as well, right? So that may be a constraint, that may be a challenge, right? And also when you scale up your business, there can be operational complexities as well, right? Now at the startup stage, you may be operating in a very, casual level. There can be some, not much documented processes, right? Casual processes that you just operate with your small team, right? But when you actually scale up, when your operation gets larger, that processes may not going to work, right? So there can be complexities, especially when your operations being bigger and your team is becoming larger, right? And also about the quality. When you increase your quantity, definitely there can be actually it can negatively affect the quality of your product, right? If it is especially if it is a physical product, right? And then actually the market saturation. Now you actually try to scale up your business, but your market is already saturated with a lot of competition, with a lot of competitors, right? There also you may face challenges, right? And then actually managing growth related risks. Now, when you scale up your business, there can be growth related risk that were not there at your startup stage, but risks that you have to face and that you have to mitigate when you actually grow. It may be financial risks, right? It may be regulatory risk, likewise, right? So how we can address these challenges is actually by using strategies, right? So there are actually strategies that you can use when you are scaling up your business, right? And these strategies helps you to scale up your business effectively. One is actually product diversification, right? You can actually, if your startup only offers one product, you can actually think of offer different kind of products, right? You can expand your product portfolio or your service offerings, right? Maybe through the same product. What are the services that you offer through that? If it is a digital product, what are the features that you offer, right? You can actually expand through that, scale through that. And the second point, you can expand the market, right? The same product, there's no difference in the product, but you will actually expand your business, scale your business by expand your market. If you only cater one market currently, you are going to reach out to many more markets, right? Maybe more locations, geographic, or maybe more market segments, right? I will explain you with our experiences also how we have actually used some of these strategies when we were scaling up, right? And the third point is strategic partnerships, right? Now, now this connects with actually the SWOT. Now, I hope you have already learned about the SWOT analysis, right? Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, right? It's very important to do SWOT analysis about your business, about your startup at every stage of your business, right? So when actually at a stage, when actually you do your SWOT, if you identify that you have weaknesses in your business, or you cannot actually achieve some things alone, you can always actually use this strategy to make those weaknesses as strengths. And that is actually through strategic partnerships. What you can do is you can actually alliance with other businesses, collaborate with other businesses who have those what you have as weaknesses, but what they have as strengths, right? So that together you can synergize those strengths and you can actually achieve what you want to achieve, right? And also some businesses use franchising. Franchising means allowing others to use your business model. If you have a proven business model, right? If you have a validated business model, you can actually allow others to use that business model and make a profit out of that. And also you will also be benefited through that. And that is also one strategy, how you can scale your business, right? And about mergers and acquisition. Now you can actually, now this much relates to the competition, right? Now, if you have similar competitors who's actually offering similar product or services, you can actually think of merging with them so that you can synergize both of your strengths and offer a scalable opportunity, cater a scalable opportunity, right? Or you can acquire, right? You can actually acquire your smaller competitors so that actually you can be the you can gain the more of the market share, right? And another very important point is leveraging technology. When you scale up your business, right, uh, depending only on the human will not allow you to exponentially grow, right? So leveraging technology maybe especially to streamline your processes, right, or automate your processes, right, using digital technologies, IT and AI and everything, right, that helps you to scale up your business more effectively, right? And also raising capital, right? Some actually scaling efforts need more funds, so you have to raise. You can use raising capital as a strategy if you are actually having. These are a few examples that how we used some of those scale up strategies when we were actually moving from startup stage to scale up stage. Now we are still actually in the journey of scaling up. We have not scaled up completely, but we are in the journey of scaling up. So I will share with you a few examples how we used those strategies. Now, product diversification, right? So Basha as a company, as the umbrella company, we started the company started with only one product, right? That is actually Helakuru. There was a product before that, which was my university project, but that we consider Helakuru as our first product right now, right? But without limiting to that first product, we actually diversified our product portfolio, catering different market segments, right? So we catered three main segments, mainly consumer market. We actually offered multiple products to the consumer market. Helakuru, Esana, Helape. Some of you may aware about all these three. Some of you aware about only a few, right? And also we cater another market segments as a company, the B2B market, right? So we started offering products and services for businesses to to solve problems in their business operation, right? So Pay Here catered a market gap in that time, right? And Shop Here is a forward integration of Pay Here, and Events Here is also same, right? And Helapos. Those are actually all these products cater that market, right? And also we catered another market segment, the kids market in the country, right? So we have a kids product range. All these are related to mobile applications and web applications, which is our strength, technological strength, but catering different market segments, right? So this product diversification can be done in several levels. You can done it in the company level, right? As a company, you can use product diversification to not only limit to only one product or one service offering, and you can actually scale through that. And even you can actually use product diversification in terms of one product itself, right? So from our example, now Helakuru, since most of you may familiar with this, now Helakuru started as only solving a very simple problem, right? Only one problem, that is singular typing, right? We had as a product, we had only this keyboard facility in the beginning, but later on, when our market grows, the demand increases, right? When we got about 1 million users, 2 million users, we identified another opportunity there. We can actually diversify the product offerings or the service offerings, right? And cater that same user base that we already acquired to offer multiple services. And that's how actually we converted this single purpose app, keyboard app, to a multi-purpose super app, right? So right now, actually, we have diversified that and offering multiple services through that. In addition to the keyboard, we are providing new services, Asana, like Asana, and mobile reloads, bill payments, doctor channeling through HelloPay and QR payments, and fact check services, social networking services like Sitalu, likewise, right? So with that, now when the competition comes, right? Now initially, when we were only a keyboard app, we didn't have much competition. We were in a blue ocean, right? But when the ocean gets red with the foreign competitors like Gboard, SwiftKey, when they supported Sinhala, we could still actually gain our market domination or sustain or retain our user base by offering these multiple services, which are still relevant and still actually fulfill their day-to-day digital needs, right? And also with regard to the second example, market expansion. So I already explained this. Now, initially, we only had the partnership with one bank, and they had the limitation, they had the restriction that they actually limited offering our services only to that bank account holders, right? So we could actually, when we entered into the market with that partnership, but in the long run, we saw to expand our market, we need to break out that. So we partnered up with another bank, right? And we negotiated them to support any bank. And then we actually expanded our market to support any bank account holder in the country, any business, right? To offer our services, right? So again, that again expanded into different market segments. Previously, we only served those who have a business registration. And then actually we break that also, and we are now offering our services even for home-based businesses who have no BR, and even for freelancers, right? So that is actually market expansion. How you can actually think of offering the same product, right, or the same service into different new markets, right? And this is the example about strategic partnerships. Now, in terms of Helakuru, right? We are partnered, or we are collaborating with many parties who offer these super app services, right? Now, Helakuru's main business model is actually our pro version. It's going as freemium. We offer basic typing and things as basic or free services, free version, and the value-added services as a pro version, a paid version for a paid subscription. So for these paid subscription, we are using two telcos, Dialog and Mobitel, for carrier billing, right? Because even though we have our own payment gateway and all these Google Play billing and Apple billing, still for the adoption of paid consumers in the country, especially for this low ticket size, right? We identified that carrier billing is best suitable option, right? So we collaborated with them, and we are using them, using their strength to add to bill facility for that. And then actually to offer our value-added services, payment services, doctor channeling services, fact-checking services, where we have partnered with different parties, right? We have partnered with different parties so that in collaboration with them, we can offer a better product offering to our customers, right? And in terms of pay here, some of you may have heard that initially we had few regulatory problems when introducing pay here, right? So for that, actually, to get the regulatory compliance, we partnered with one bank, right? Through them, actually, we could actually sort out or overcome the challenges, regulatory challenges, and come into the market. And then when actually that limitation was there, we partnered up with another bank who offered us the capability to expand our services to all bank account holders in the country, right? So that's how actually we can use strategic partnerships to grow our business exponentially to the next level, right? And leveraging technology, a couple of examples, right? Now for pay here, one major effort that our human resources is actually consuming is screening. You know, I mean, we have to screen the transactions to avoid fraud, because if a fraud happens, the aggregator or we have to bear that loss, right? So that actually previously in our earlier stages, we manually using our staff, we manually actually monitored the payments, right? Suspicious payments, right? But Right now, we are actually using a AI-based tool, Pro.net, which actually allows us to automate that process. So that actually screen each and every of our payment. And if there is a suspicious payment, we get a automated alert, right? So that's how actually when you're now as since Pay here currently serves the largest merchant base in the country, there's a huge number of volume of payments that process through that, right? So there's a level that comes that you cannot actually handle them manually uh, going forward, right? So that's where actually you have to leverage technology to automate or streamline those processes as much as possible. And also with regard to the customer servicing, right? Previously, we offered only customer service only in office hours, but we actually moved to a system, a help desk system, right? A help desk technology where a support ticketing system is there. So every inquiry is not missed, even though the same agent cannot actually continue a ticket or a support inquiry to from the inquiry to the resolution state. This technology or this platform helps us to streamline that process and leave no customer dissatisfied, right? So that actually have helped us to offer 24/7 customer support right now for all of our products, Pay here, Telakuru, and all, right? And the impact of using these strategies, now I explained you, showed you few examples of how some of those strategies, scaling up strategies that how we have been used. So by using them, we have been able to achieve these two things with regard to two of our products, right? So Helakuru, right now, actually, it has been scaled up to serve the most number of users in the country as the most downloaded homegrown app in the country, right? And also ranked as the most popular app by Market Insights reports, right? And also Pay here, we have been able to secure the market leadership, right? Serving the largest customer base. We were even featured in GSER International Report as the leading payment gateway service in the country, right? Okay, so now when you actually use these strategies and overcome those challenges that we previously discussed, when you are actually scaling up your business, right? You have to first plan how you can actually scale your business, right? And these are some of the key considerations that you have to consider in your planning stage, right? First thing is you have to do the market research and analysis to understand your target market, to understand your customers, right? Because, I mean, if you are scaling your product or service and your customers are not ready for that, or customers are saturated with existing products or competitive products, right? That may be challenging, right? So you have to plan, for you to plan, you have to do the market research on your customers' target market and do proper analysis. And also you need to do financial planning and management, because when you are scaling up, you will need more financial support. You will need more funds, right? So you have to plan how you can fund that, maybe from investors, maybe from you have to raise your funds, or maybe getting loans from banks or others, or actually you reinvest your own profits, right? So in our example, we were a bootstrap from the very beginning. We actually didn't go to the options of external investments, so bank loans from the beginning to today. And still we are actually operating as a bootstrap, reinvesting our own profits for our growth and for scaling up, right? So it's up to you. Some businesses can be bootstrapped, some businesses cannot be. If it is a physical business, the case is different. So the only thing is you have to plan it well, right? You have to plan how you actually manage your financial in your scaling up, right? And also you have to plan on the infrastructure and technology, right? And you have to ensure that your systems can help the growth, right? Now, if you do your marketing and all that to reach that exponential growth, but if your systems fails, if your server getting down, and if your production getting low quality, right, that will not work. So you have to plan properly how you can actually scale your infrastructure, how your infrastructure and technology supports your scaling, right? And then actually, very important, how you retain your customers and keep them satisfied, right? Because when you are scaling up your business, if your existing customers getting unhappy, right, getting dissatisfied, right, that will not good for the business, right? You will not be able to achieve your goals, scaling up goals, right? So you have to plan how you can keep your existing customers happy, satisfied, while reaching your scale up goals, right? And also you have to plan how you can manage your risks and mitigate them, right? So you have to identify the potential risks and be prepared for them, right? And the last thing is you have to plan on talent acquisition, because when you scale up, you will need more people with different talents, different skills, different knowledge, right? And you have to build your team accordingly, right? Maybe you have to have more layers, maybe manage front managers, middle management, top management, like management layers, right? You have to handle that as well, because the hardest part is actually handling the humans, right? So in our case also, now initially we had a very small team, started about 4 people full time, and for about 4 5 years in our startup stage, we had only about 7 8 people. So we operated like a family, right? It's only one team. We shared the same values, right? It was easy at that time to share the founders' value to the others, right? And to keep them motivated and keep them getting that common goal, getting into that common goal. But when the team grows, right? When the team grows, it's a little bit actually getting complex, right? So you as a founder, you will be not be able to share that value with all of them going forward, right? So what we did is actually, when our team grows, we actually created sub teams, right? Sub teams based on the function that they operate, right? And we had managers to lead them, right? We had managers to lead them, so that what I right now do, I actually share the values, I share the spirit, they share the motivation with the managers who actually look after that team or lead that teams, right? And that managers actually in that sub teams, we still maintain that family-like culture, right? Company. So culture for an organization is actually all about values you share, right? So we share the same values through through a middle layer. So that's how right now we operate as 3 teams: Basha creators, creatives, and carers, right? That's a different story. In our own way of segregating the teams, right? Okay, so the last one, when to scale. Now we discussed about why we need to scale and what is actually scaling versus the growth, and the challenges that we have to face, and how we can use strategies to overcome them, and when we can scale, right? When you should scale your business, right? And this is actually very important, right? To scale the business at the right time, right? So some businesses who scale before that also fails. Some businesses who fail to scale at the right time also fails, right? So you have to do it in the right time. And these are few points that you can consider, right? You should have an accomplished, settled team. Settled team means actually now the delegation has happened correctly, right? You cannot be actually the the one-man show player in your team going forward, right? You have to delegate all your functionalities and make sure that even the team operates even without you, right? So you have to have a settled team if you are to scale. And then actually you have to have a proven track record of hitting milestones. It can be product milestones, sales milestones, or user base milestone, or likewise, right? So you have to be confident in yourself that your track record is good, and you even in your scaling up journey, you will be able to achieve your milestone, right? And then actually about the financial position, right? You have to be confident in your financial position. In your startup stage, you should already found the right business model for your product and service, and for your scaling up, you should have a sustainable cash flow, right? And the plan to how you fund or how do you finance your scaling up plan, right? And the last one, you should have the capable IT infrastructure, right? Now, this is more relevant to the digital products. Now, if it is a digital products, if your IT systems are not actually capable of scaling up, that is not a good time for you to scale. So you have to gain that position first, and then actually, once you fulfilled all of these, you can actually come to the scale up stage, right? You can actually take the decision to scale your product, service, or the business, right? Okay. So those are actually the things that I wanted to share with you. In a summary, the takeaways. So scaling up is all about growing smartly, right? Not actually growing your revenues in the same pace that your cost is growing. That is how the traditional businesses are growing, right? But scaling up means keeping your costs at a minimal level while your revenues grows in an exponential level, right? And it's very important for meeting demand, right? When you're meeting high demand from the customer, when your product or service is meeting high demand, it's very important. And then to reach new markets, right? Expand from your current markets and to reach new markets, it's very important, and stay competitive, right? If you do not scale, your competitor will scale and they will actually gain your market share, right? So it's very important for all these three things. And when you scale up, when you decide to scale up, when you start scaling up, challenges will come, but there are strategies to overcome them. If you use the strategies correctly, you will be able to overcome those challenges and scale up effectively, right? And planning, careful planning is very important, and teamwork and learning from others is essential, right? It's not you who are the first person to scale up a business. So those are many case studies that you can follow. So you can learn from others. If you do these things well, you can actually scale up your business effectively. So thank you very much. If you have any questions, we can discuss.
Thank you, Danika.
Thank you.
Yeah, we have a couple of questions. You can see on the Q&A, or else I can read it for you. My company has a few
Yeah,
more
I can see.
services. Oh, yeah, you can see it. Yeah.
Q&A. Yes, Q&A.
And also a few questions in the chat, regular
Sorry,
chat
I
also.
can see the questions in the Q&A, but I can see the chat.
All right. So I'll put it in the chat.
Okay.
Yep. So this is one of the questions I just pitched into the chat. I think there's another one. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, you can paste it. I'll read and answer.
Yeah.
So the first question: my company has more services. Is it wiser to expanding all of the services once, or should I go ahead one by one? So it depends on actually what we discussed in the session, right? So now, when you're running a business, focus is very important, right? So when you actually deviated for multiple services, what happens is in the startup stage, our focus actually going from here to there, right? So it's very important that as we discussed in this in the slides, right? You can actually go to the scale up stage, or you can actually continue expanding all of them if they have found the right business model, right? If your financial position is strong, if your IT systems are strong enough, right? If your team is strong enough to scale up, right? So if only one or two of them are at that stage, already break even, already found the right business model, already profitable, and those are actually the business you should consider expanding first, right? So when other services you are offering comes to the same level, you can actually focusing on expanding them as well, right? So it's not better to not do all of them together. Those who complete those, complete those requirements, you can actually first expand them, and likewise, you can do that. Okay, what are the ways to earn money from an app? There are different business models. You can actually monetize a mobile application, right? So, I will share. I'll share my own experience now with regard to Helakuru. Let me share you a few business models that we monetize. One thing is actually the freemium model that I explained. Now we have a set of free users who use Helakuru and set of paid users who actually use our pro version. So who actually use pro version, we charge a monthly subscription, right? So from that monthly subscription, we gain a revenue. For free users, we have actually displayed them, display ads through Google AdMob and direct ads and house ads. We are actually using mobile advertising to gain a revenue out of that. So that advertising is one business model, subscription is one business model, and also from the services that we offer, like reloads and bill payments, we have a commission business model, right? So we offer reloads without charging anything from the user, but we have a commission from our supplier, right? And for bill payments, we charge a convenience fee for the user. So there's also always a commission fee that we commission business model that we gain a revenue, right? And also with regard to QR payments, again, there is a commission fee. Now, you may know that, I mean, Lanka QR payments only 0.5% is actually the MDR, but there's a very small margin, 0.0 something, there is a commission that we gain, right? And likewise, there are business models that you can use to monetize an app. Okay. Another question, I contact WhatsApp if possible. I'll share you my WhatsApp number. I'll go to the top of the chat. Can CSR, corporate social responsibility, be a scale? For example, integrating social issue with business issue. Now, if you take it in the right way, right? From everything that we do from the entrepreneurial mindset, right, is also a CSR, right? Suppose our own product, right, Helakuru. Now, 12 years back, people in Sri Lanka, Sinhalese people especially, didn't have a way to, express themselves in Sinhala on their digital space, right? So it is a social issue as well, right? So the society has that problem. Society had that need. Only those who are capable of, have the English literacy and communicate in English could actually use it. Otherwise, they have to use English letters in Sinhala, right? So they had to use in that way to express themselves, right? So providing a that kind of a solution for the society, right, is also a corporate social responsibility, right? So my belief is actually CSR should not be a part of marketing that you just do some few projects and get the marketing benefit out of that. But the CSR should be there in your entrepreneurial products and services, right? So if you can actually find the market gap, problem in the society, right? When others are blaming for governments and all the other parties, if you can actually see it as an opportunity, right? And if you can come up with an innovative idea, creative idea to build a solution as a product or a service, right? You are doing a CSR, right? That's what I believe.
Excellent.
How did you manage the Sri Lankan bank sector work as a startup? It's again a strategy. Now, through Helakuru, I had gained much of a reputation as an entrepreneur, right? And that reputation and our proven track record helped me to actually build partnerships with Sri Lankan banks when I start Pay Here, right? So when I start Pay Here, they were already seeing me as some sort of a successful entrepreneur, even though at that level it was in some kind of level, but that helped me to work with the banks and the central bank and institutes such as Lanka Pay, and to expand our services with partnerships with them. Okay, I think that's all. Is there anything else, Professor?
That was excellent, Danica. So right on the spot. I think you did
Professor.
very well. I just want to reiterate certain things Danica mentioned. So the first thing struck my mind and all of our participants as well for that matter is that you cannot continue with just one product, and you have to bring in relevant products based on the same platform, same stem, so that your customers will make it gradually part of their life. So they want to live in your application bunch. For example, we buy things on the roadside shops, right? And go from one shop to another shop, collecting what we want. But you can go to the supermarket and buy everything you want and spend some more time as pleasure, right? So I think this is the scenario Danica tried to explain you. So please take those lessons to your hearts and minds when you walk the same path Danica walked 10 years ago, started 10 years ago. And also, Danica mentioned when you scale up your business, you might disappoint some of your subordinates, people who are working under you. You have to be very careful about that, not to disappoint people who are working with you. So that is extremely important. And also to motivate your team members is very important at all times. Danica mentioned when you grow your scale up your business, your team grows as well. So you cannot have the cohesiveness, synergy in a larger group. So he segregated the group, sub teams, and all that. So you have the managers managing the subgroups, and managers are working like a family, and everybody under a certain manager works as a family as well. So it's a very smart technique to maintain the family mentality as you grow your business. And also, time to scale up is also very important. Don't be late, don't be early as well. And also, he mentioned about different business models, right? He mentioned about, say, either direct profit is one way, or in digital domain, advertisements. You don't have to charge from your customers, but charge from the people who put advertisements while you are having your application running and customers are using it. So you get revenue from the advertisements, and customers, they use it for free. And then you can go for subscription and then commission. So I'm just telling to our audience, think abroad. Okay, so there are different ways so that you can bring your product into the customers. So I think it's a really good eye opener. And also, last thing Danica mentioned is that to scale up your business, you have to build your reputation. People should know about you, and people should trust in you. That's how Danica was able to get into the banks and sit with the bank managers, the CEOs of the big banks, right? Same level, because he had built his reputation. Then you can actually make a deal with those people, business deals. And final thing that struck my mind is that you have to start your entrepreneurial journey with a very pure intention of solving a problem in the society. So by nature, it is CSR. So Danica believed in that concept, and he used that concept to build his startup, scale it up, and he is well off today. So with that, I thank you, Danica, for sharing your time. I think it was a very serious addition to this program. I'm sure the participants were really benefited from your talk. So we'll say a bye to you, good night, and we'll see you again some other time.
Thank you, Professor. Good night.
Good night to you.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Now, let me introduce our next speaker. We have invited Mr. Vajira Alepola to speak to our participants today, and he graciously accepted the invitation. So, Vajira, thank you very much for being with us this evening. I know how busy you are, extremely busy person, but nevertheless, he decided to spare some time with us. Vajira is the Director General and CEO of the Employers Federation of Ceylon, EFC. Sometimes this might not be a very familiar word to most of us, but it's a very, very important position he's holding on to right now. He's an attorney at law, was a former state counsel of the Attorney General's Department. He is a member of the National Labor Advisory Council. He represents EFC, that is Employees Federation of Ceylon, at several global forums, including the International Labor Conference of the ILO, that is International Labor Organization, International Organization of Employers, South Asian Employers Forum, and the Confederation of Asia Pacific Employers. He has followed various training programs conducted by the International Labor Organization, ILO, and the Association for Overseas Technical Cooperation and Sustainable Partnerships, that is ATOS, to name a few. And Vajra is an expert in the areas of employment, labor, law, and industrial relations. So Vajra, without any further ado, I would like to call upon you to deliver your talk.
Yeah. Thank you, Professor. Thank you very much for giving this opportunity for me to connect with this important program. And I believe I'll be able to add some value to this program that is ongoing. The subject area that has been given to me is in relation to labor disputes and how we could mitigate the disputes or avoid or manage the disputes that happen or that will take place in our enterprises or at our workplaces. Disputes, I believe, is something which is very common in any environment. If we take our home environment, or if you take the society, or if you take the country, always we grapple with disputes, arguments, disagreements, and so on. So it is not something different even in a working environment. And therefore, for us to have a structured approach about how we should resolve disputes is very important in our day-to-day operations, in our enterprises, in our workplaces. It can be even a small workplace or a big workplace. Whatever it is, I think it is important that we have or build that relationship with our employees so that we manage our working environment in a very conducive manner where you can get the maximum productivity and create that conducive environment. Professor, as I did mention earlier, I will not be sharing a PowerPoint presentation. Maybe later on, I could, if participants need, I can capture the main salient points of my presentation and share it later on with you so that you can share it with the participants.
Yeah, sounds good.
So what I will do is I will go through the main features of this presentation, and then of course if there are any questions I can certainly take on some questions. Now when we look at the working environment or a business, we know we have different stakeholders in that. So we have the employer or the management of a business, and then we have the other party, other employees. So there are two main parties of a business or in an employment relationship. And in that relationship, with regard to certain disputes that may arise as to how we should settle it, how we should proactively address those is very important so that it doesn't disturb the industrial peace of our organization. Because always, if industrial peace is disturbed, that is going to have a direct impact on our business and the productivity of our organization. Now, I will dwell a little bit into the legal aspects in this regard to give you just a little bit of background about disputes and the legal formation of disputes in terms of the Sri Lankan law. Now, we have the Industrial Disputes Act. We call it in Sinhala Karmika Arawul Panatha. And when it comes to industrial disputes, when we're talking about industrial disputes, this Industrial Disputes Act becomes very important. In terms of the Industrial Disputes Act, it identifies a dispute because it's important to identify what a industrial dispute, the definition or what kind of a dispute is considered as an industrial dispute. Now, in terms of the Industrial Disputes Act, it identifies, I will not go into legal jargon, I will try to make it very simple so that you could easily understand. It identifies a dispute as a dispute between an employer and an employee, or employers and employees. So it's a dispute between an individual employee and the management, in other words, or it can be even a dispute with all employees and with the employer, or even a group of employers. Now, you might wonder, how can a group of employers come into a dispute? Now, just to give you an example in that regard, we'll just take an example of the banking sector. So maybe there is a common issue in relation to the banking sector across all banks, which applies to all employees in the banking sector. Now, that kind of a dispute can be common to so many banks. So you have so many employers and also employees of all the banks that are affected by that kind of a particular issue. So that kind of issue also can be considered as an industrial dispute. So basically, to say a dispute, always you have to have two parties. So we have to identify the two parties. One is the employer, and on the other side is the employee or employees. So that's the kind of very simple. I will not go into the legal definition of it to make it very simple for you. Now, those are the parties. Then what are the matters, a dispute between an employer and employee? What are the matters that can arise or can be the subject of a industrial dispute between these two parties? Now, can it be any dispute? So in terms of the Industrial Disputes Act, it identifies a broad kind of relationship, any matter that comes within the employment relationship. If I mention so, if the terms that are used in the Industrial Disputes Act is employment or non-employment, terms of employment, conditions of labor, and termination of services. So it's very broad to capture any issue between the employer and employee to be considered as a industrial dispute. Now, having said this, or the kind of the framework of an industrial dispute, I know sometimes in a small organization or a small enterprise, sometimes someone might think that these disputes are not so common, or there aren't much disputes. But I believe what happens is, in a small enterprise, sometimes the employees might be reluctant to raise a dispute. But that doesn't mean that there's no kind of a dispute or a grievance an employee has. So we need to be mindful to identify those disputes or grievances employees have, so that we don't allow it to escalate and make it become a big issue ultimately, where it might disturb the industrial peace of the organization. So just to recap about the dispute, what we need to keep in mind is in a dispute in the working environment is a dispute or a disagreement between an employer and an employee. And it can be on what areas. It can actually cover any matter that comes within the employment relationship broadly. And we can say whether it's with regard to employment or non-employment. So when you say non-employment, even if you don't offer a person work, that also can be result as a result in a dispute. Someone who, if you don't offer work also, so non-employment is also can be considered as a dispute. Then the terms of employment. Terms of employment are very wide. So it can cover salaries, your leave, holidays, your overtime, your allowances, your bonuses. So terms and conditions or the working hours, all those things can be considered as terms and conditions of employment, which can be a subject matter of a dispute. Also, in terms of these definitions, it has also identified the termination of employment. Now, there were some cases that were initially that looked at this issue of termination. Just to give you some idea about, there were some cases where some took up the position that once there is a termination, that the employment relationship ends there, and therefore there cannot be a dispute after the services have been terminated, because you have to have an employer and an employee, and once his services are terminated, that relationship ends there, and therefore there's no room for a dispute. But our courts have held that even in relation to a terminated employee, there can be a dispute, a live dispute, provided that that dispute had been raised while he was in employment. So we'll say a person who was not given a promotion. After his termination, if he raises that, then there will be no live dispute. Then it will be possible to take up the position that he has not raised it while he was in employment, and therefore there's no live dispute. And now he is no longer an employee, and therefore he cannot raise it because there is no employer-employee relationship. But whilst he was in employment, had he raised it, and then after his retirement even, he can continue with that dispute because he had raised it whilst in employment. So those are some of the matters that I would like to draw your attention to when you are discussing about this subject of industrial disputes. Now I will just take you little on to different types of disputes that we encounter. Now at the Employers Federation of Ceylon, we represent employers. Actually, we are an organization who represent employers. We have about 700 members in our companies in our membership. So we represent members, their interests. Now in that context, we have like the service sector, the agriculture, and also the manufacturing. So we come across a lot of disputes in our day-to-day operations where companies encounter. And as Employers Federation of Ceylon, we represent our members and we sit with the other parties, sometimes trade unions, sometimes employees, and we discuss those disputes and we try to settle it through discussions. Now, these disputes have various kind of disputes can be raised by employees. Very common disputes that we see in our experience is mostly it is in relation to the salaries or the financial related disputes that come about. So companies, they generally, some of the companies or the in the manufacturing sector and even sometimes the banking sector, we see their salaries are revised annually, but they enter into collective agreements in relation to the non-executive category employees. So what they do is they the trade unions or the employees, they submit their proposals for revision of their terms and conditions. Now, those terms and conditions vary. Apart from the financial terms and conditions, they have various other terms and conditions, even going up to uh, like the loans they get or the medical benefits, and sometimes maybe the leave, holidays, overtime, and it varies according to each sector. So in those, sometimes the dispute arise actually when there's no meeting of minds at the collective agreement discussion. So collective agreement discussions uh, sometimes take a long duration. Sometimes when the trust and confidence is built between the two parties, it becomes easy to understand the other party, and then sometimes the discussions become very cordial. Uh, and then once the parties agree on a collective agreement, the terms and conditions, they put it down in writing, and then we sign the agreement, and then that is mostly we sign a collective agreement for 3 years. Sometimes it's for a shorter period, but in most of the cases, you sign for 3 years. So the disputes, that is on the basis of collective disputes or the collective issues employees may have. Now, similarly, in a workplace or an enterprise, you might have individual issues or disputes also. Individuals, the employees might have a issue. Individual might come and say, well, my the promotion has not been given, and I am the most suitable person, and I was overlooked, and another person was given the promotion. So that kind of individual issues also can arise at a workplace. Or else we'll say a particular employee has been transferred to another location or a place, and that might create some sort of an issue with regard to that particular individual or employee, and he might want to raise that dispute with the management and say, okay, my transfer, I have not been given sufficient notice, and I have to, my family is getting affected and all that, so I need sufficient time and so on. And so that kind of disputes also can arise. Or maybe a certain bonus payment which has been reduced due to some sort of a reason of an individual employee, or a salary increment has been reduced of a particular employee. So like that, there can be so many issues, or even a disciplinary matter where the punishment given, an employee might raise an issue and say, well, the punishment given, I'm not in agreement. So there can be many different issues at a workplace where we could see a whole range of issues that might be brought to the notice of the management, or sometimes it might not be brought to the notice. But what happens is, what we need to keep in mind is that when a dispute, when the employees don't have a kind of a mechanism available in the workplace to discuss a dispute he has or a grievance that person has, he keeps it in his mind, and then he's a disgruntled employee. He becomes a disgruntled employee. Now, this has a reflection on the services or the efficiency of an employee or the productivity of an employee. So the management need to understand that a dispute or a grievance of an employee, if we don't have a mechanism in the workplace to address that, although it might automatically, sometimes maybe because there is no mechanism, the employee might raise it and the management might think that in that way, it is better because we will have less issues. But certainly we need to keep in mind that is going to have a negative impact on our operations, because when you have a workforce who are not satisfied, who are not contented, always that is going to have a negative impact on our organization's performance, our organization's productivity. Employee who's satisfied will always go beyond, or will always try to contribute and give the best to the organization, as against employee who's not satisfied. So that is very important for us to keep in mind. Now, moving on, I will just dwell a little bit about disputes, the legal provisions. You might ask, or you might have in your mind the question whether employees could kind of disturb the operations of an organization in relation to a dispute they have. Can they legally, what is the legal position? Can employees collectively or even individually, can they disturb the operations? Or in other words, can they stop work, or can they go on strike, and so on? Now, a dispute, when it's not settled, or when the dispute ultimately escalates, it might end up in a situation where employees collectively might decide to go in for a work stoppage or a strike. All of you are very familiar with this term, strike. Now, what is the question with regard to strikes and the legal position? Now, in terms of our law, the concern of Sri Lanka under Article 14, under Article 14, it gives the right for any person to join or form a trade union. So in terms of our constitution itself, which is not only in Sri Lanka, in most of the jurisdiction in other parts of the world, also to right to join a trade union is recognized in their fundamental legal system. In addition to that, if we look at the Sri Lankan law, the trade unions ordinance gives certain immunities to trade unions with regard to the action they can take on the basis of trade disputes. So legally, trade dispute, certain action on the part of a trade union or collectively, that is given certain legal recognition by our legal system. In that context, it will not be considered as illegal if the trade union or a collective of employees, if they engage in on the basis of some sort of a dispute, if they engage in a work stoppage or a trade union action. Now, having said that, on the basis of employers or the businesses, now, how do we address this kind of a situation? How do we resolve these disputes is something very important for us to address or keep in mind. As much as there is room for employees or the trade unions to engage in trade disputes and engage in work stoppages, then from the business point of view, you might ask the question, okay, how can we create an environment where we have industrial peace? Because for a business, industrial peace is very important, because in a particular, we'll say a business which has to send a very important shipment before the end of the day today, all of a sudden employees go on strike. What will happen? You will lose your client. You will lose your customer. So disputes is always going to have a direct impact on our businesses. So in that context, it is very important that we have a very good understanding as to how we should resolve these disputes or how to avoid disputes happening in our workplace. That is very important in the context rather than trying to address an issue after a dispute has taken place. So we need to be proactive to prevent disputes taking place in our workplace. So in that context, how do we address this? Now, in any workplace, whether it is a small workplace, sometimes one might think, okay, in small workplaces, we don't have much of disputes. Yes, we to an extent because the numbers are small, sometimes dispute can be less. But that doesn't mean that there won't be any disputes even in a small working environment or a bigger environment. Now, a mechanism that we can adopt in any workplace, it is important that we develop a grievance handling procedure in our workplaces. Now, this grievance handling procedure, and of course, a dispute is something which a grievance can escalate to a different level, and that will arise as a dispute. But if we have a grievance handling procedure established in our workplace, then in that kind of a situation, you give or there is a procedure established in any organization where every employee can raise some sort of an issue or a dispute when they have with the management. So grievance handling procedure generally is a mechanism where you develop in your workplace based on each division or unit or department. You create a kind of a mechanism, different steps. When there is a dispute or a grievance, how do you resolve it? So it should be in written form, grievance handling procedure of each workplace. So that is a document where an employee will be able to go through a certain procedure of addressing the issue he has. So basically, to give you an idea, we can identify a grievance handling procedure where the first step can be the person, aggrieved party, can raise the matter with his superior officer. Then if he is not satisfied of the outcome after raising the issue with the superior officer, immediate superior officer, maybe we have another step in our grievance handling procedure where he can raise it with the sectional head or the department head or the supervisor of that department. Then we have the next link. If that is not resolved, then we go to the HR division of the organization or the administration officer of that organization. Then if that doesn't happen, then there should be another step where he can raise it with the general manager or the CEO. So likewise, there should be a structure. So it might differ from organization to organization on the basis of the structure of the organization, but we must develop that grievance handling procedure in every organization so that they can raise those issues. And also there should be a step even sometimes in a serious case where the employee should be able to even reach the top management directly depending on the circumstances. So that kind of a structured grievance handling procedure in our organizations will give kind of confidence to the employees that the organization is transparent and any issue that they have can be resolved through that mechanism. And what happens is when you don't have that mechanism, employees try to keep that and they try to discuss those matters among themselves. And then that is how ultimately they form into different groups and they look at outsiders to help them to resolve their internal issues. So it is very important as an organization for us to have internal processes in our organizations to look at resolving disputes within the organization. Now, in that context, as I did mention, the first step can be developing a grievance handling procedure. And of course, having developed it, employees should be aware of that procedure. They should be given a copy of that and they should be trained and give them confidence that raising those issues even against another employee, that they will not be victimized. And that kind of open environment should be created in any organization. When you create that culture in your organization, that will really give kind of a very friendly and a very conducive environment for employees to work, and they will consider that working environment, that kind of organization, to be an organization which is for them to bring the satisfaction for them to work and to contribute to that organization. If that kind of a environment is not created by the management in an organization, they will always, the employees, their contribution to the organization, their efficiency, their productivity is also, it will definitely is going to suffer, and which will have a negative impact on the performance of the organization. So that is one way of addressing the dispute procedure in the organization. So you can have maybe monthly meetings in addition to that, a monthly meeting system where each department is represented by people whom they themselves appoint. So each division to be represented by 2 persons, and then maybe you can have a monthly meeting system for them to address those issues. Maybe you can have some organizations have this town hall kind of meetings, and where they can raise any issue they want or discuss any matter, so on. Now, this kind of format and this kind of a uh, 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 environment that you create not only gives the opportunity for employees to raise issues or grievance or disputes, but also suggestions. They bring in sometimes good suggestions for efficiency, for the development, and for the contribution of the growth of the organization. So this is actually a mechanism where it works both ways, which is beneficial for the organization and also for the employees. So in addition to grievance and dispute issues that they have, it can be a forum where they will, or the mechanism where they will also, through a grievance, bring in some sort of suggestions that might give better ideas to your organization to improve on certain areas and certain shortcomings in the organization. Now, the second one, so that is the grievance handling process of an organization. The second one is when it's a bigger company, sometimes when there is a number of employees, a big company, generally you have a mechanism of dispute settlement procedure also, where you say, okay, if there is a dispute, this is the mechanism to settle it. So generally, as the Employees Federation of Ceylon, we suggest that when there is a dispute, that the parties should, in writing, inform the management the details of the dispute and give 14 days for the management to respond and discuss that matter. And then the next step is, if the employees or the trade union, they are not happy with that dispute, the way the response of the management, then we say that they should refer the matter to the Commissioner General of Labor, where the Commissioner General of Labor will have the authority under conciliatory proceedings, which I will deal in the next this thing. He will intervene and see whether he can resolve that issues. So then the matter will go to a third party, an independent party, and give time for them to resolve the issues. And then the suggestions made by the commission or whatever, still if the parties can't resolve that issue, then of course, as the last resort, the employees or whoever, they should give notice to the company with regard to the next step they are going to do. So there is a dispute settlement procedure. So you can develop a dispute settlement procedure, and through those discussions, negotiations, our experience had been that always most of the disputes have been arrived or settled in an amicable way. I mean, you will not have always, both sides will not achieve 100% of what they want. But ultimately, both parties will realize that, okay, there are certain constraints of both sides and they will try to meet in the middle, somewhere in the middle, and be contented with whatever the outcome. When you don't have that kind of a mechanism available, then only the disputes becomes very hostile and violent. When they don't have the opportunity to discuss, when they don't have the uh, uh, mechanism to address certain issues, then the first step itself, what they try to do is to resort to the worst kind of the last thing that any party should resort. They will take that as the first step. So we must develop that kind of dispute settlement procedures in our organizations to give employees visibility, transparency, so that these disputes can be resolved without any dire consequences or detrimental effects on organizations, and which will give the employees also the feeling and the satisfactory resolving of issues. Now, in doing that, the management also need to be built. They need to build confidence. Building relationships is not easy. It takes time. To understand the other parties, you have various different, we are dealing with humans, so always you have different views, always different thinking, different way of thinking. And also when there's a grievance, always employees are quite agitated. But we must have approach. We must not address issues on an individual basis. Even if you're dealing with an individual, you must not lose focus on the issue at hand and go for individual matters or individually attacking a person when you have a dispute. You must go look at the dispute and look at addressing it, even if the other party is trying to address or personally raise certain matters. You must say that the focus should be on the issue, and let's sit and discuss this matter and resolve it on the basis of the merits of the issue, and not talk about individual or the past. Never bring in the past at a dispute or a discussion. When there's a dispute, you must not what happened in the past or how they reacted or how they acted should not distract any dispute when you sit at a discussion. Those are the main kind of points that I wanted to highlight. Now, I will just take you, before I conclude, I will take you through the mechanisms that are available in Industrial Disputes Act to resolve a dispute. In terms of the Industrial Disputes Act, there are three main mechanisms of resolving an industrial dispute. We'll say in a company, employees raise a dispute, and in such a circumstances, either the company or the employees can write to the Commissioner General of your area or the main office in Colombo and request them to intervene, saying that there is a dispute like this, and to intervene into to resolve that provision. So that is what you call in the Industrial Disputes Act conciliation proceedings. There is provision in the Industrial Disputes Act under Section 2 to conciliate a dispute, and the Commissioner General have or a labor officer or an assistant commissioner, they have the power and the authority given under the Industrial Disputes Act to summon both parties to his office and discuss about the dispute, and then he can make recommendations to resolve the dispute. So that is called conciliation. So that is one mechanism legally available to resolve a dispute, conciliation proceedings. Now, in conciliation proceedings, the labor authorities, if it is not a statutory matter, statutory matters are like what is stated in law, we'll say the EPF, ETF, or gratuity payments or salary payments. Those ones, the commissioner can give an order saying that you have defaulted and you have to pay. But we'll say a salary increase. He can't give an order. He can make a recommendation. Okay, can you pay, increase it by 2% or 3% or 5% like that, he can make a recommendation, but the employer can always say, well, this is my capacity to pay. And then the other party, trade union or the employees also can say, this is what we are looking. But there, the Commissioner General can't force you to give an increase because he's only conciliating. He can't give an order and say, you must give a salary increase of so much. So that is conciliatory proceeding. In a conciliatory proceedings, if a commissioner makes a recommendation and if the employer is unable to consider that recommendation favorably, you have to write back and say within 14 days that you are unable to accept the recommendation made by the Commissioner of Labor. So that is, if there is a settlement during that discussion, then they sign an agreement called 12-1 agreement. Under section 12-1 of the Industrial Disputes Act, parties, then the Commissioner General puts the dispute and they say, okay, these are the steps of the settlement. And they put settlement provisions, conditions, and say 1, 2, 3. And then both parties sign that agreement, and that is considered as a settlement reached under conciliation. That is called a 12-1 agreement under the Industrial Disputes Act. And once you sign that, parties become, they are bound by that agreement. So that is one mechanism. Now, I'll go to the second mechanism. Second one is arbitration. In terms of the Industrial Disputes Act, there is a second mechanism of industrial dispute is arbitration. There are two arbitration mechanisms. One is voluntary, other one is compulsory. Voluntary arbitration is where both parties to the dispute agree to refer it to arbitration, to an arbitrator. So arbitrators are appointed by the president and they are generally lawyers in a panel, and then the Commissioner General will appoint one of them as the arbitrator to resolve that dispute. So in the conciliation proceedings, we'll say it doesn't end with a settlement. Then the commissioner can ask, are you all agreeable for an arbitration to resolve it through arbitration? And in the arbitration process, where both parties will submit their views and case, and then the arbitrator will give an award and the parties become binding with that award. So that is if the parties agree, it's a compulsory arbitration. The second one is that is voluntary arbitration. Second one is compulsory arbitration. Even if the parties disagree, the Commissioner General can submit a report to the minister and the minister can refer it to an arbitrator. And that is called compulsory arbitration. And then the arbitrator will be appointed and then parties are required to go for that arbitration process. And there the case will be discussed. Each party will present their case and then the arbitrator will give an order. Award. It is called an award, and that is also again binding. But of course, you have provision to go for a writ against that award if you are not satisfied. But that is the second mechanism of conciliation, arbitration. Arbitration has two limbs: voluntary and compulsory. Compulsory is where the minister refers it to an arbitrator. Then the third mechanism is the industrial court. That is also similar to arbitration, where there are panel of three persons appointed by the minister as an industrial court. Now, in today's context, we don't see much industrial courts taking place, and mostly it is arbitrations that we see. So those are the three mechanisms in terms of the law that is available to resolve the industrial dispute. So with that, I think I will conclude the subject area of labor disputes and the mechanisms of resolving it. So to recap, as I did mention, disputes can be either individual or collective, and disputes in relation to an employment relationship is broadly, if we say, can be any dispute within the employment relationship. So it is a wide area, and it is important that the second one is how do we resolve it within the organization. We must have a mechanism to grievance handling procedure and a dispute settlement procedure within the organization so that we resolve all these issues within the organization. Why is it necessary? Because disputes and employee satisfaction, so resolving employees to the satisfaction of while maintaining the business interest and also having a satisfied workforce is very essential for us to progress and to meet the objectives of the organization. So in that context, having the internal processes. Then the third one is the dispute settlement procedure, which is set out by the law, that is conciliation, arbitration, and industrial court. So that's the kind of main crux of the subjects that I wanted to discuss. I think I will leave it at that because we have reached the time. I think if there are any questions or if there's any other clarification you require, I can take on a few questions, Professor. Thank you.
Thank you, Ajira. That was excellent. And I think served the purpose. We wanted to have our participants heard from you the basics about law when you build their own startups to make sure that they don't run into problems. There are two questions here, Wajira. Can I read it out for
Yes.
you?
Yeah. Yes, please.
The first one is, should we provide ETF or EPF facilities when we have subcontractors? That is the first question.
Yeah. Uh, Now, I believe the subcontractor relationship, what is referred here, is on the basis of one party taking the contract and then you subcontract certain work to another party. Now, generally, in terms of the law, also, you consider the employees who come under the subcontractor to be employees of the subcontractor, and therefore the contractor is not considered as the employer of those employees or under the subcontractor. So we'll say a building construction. I take a contract for a building construction, and then I give a subcontract for plumbing work or electrical work to another party. And then that party engages some employees under him. So with regard to EPF, ETF, those will become his employees, and then he is required to make those payments under his employees. But we must understand in terms of EPF, ETF, the law tries to reach its arm to protect employees, especially when it comes to superannuation benefits, to protect their retirement benefits. In that context, the law will, in the absence of due diligence exercised by the contractor, if he has failed to exercise due diligence and if there is a default on the part of the subcontractor, in such circumstances, the arm of the law will try to reach to the even the contractors in order to safeguard. In other words, if the contractor has not, when I say due diligence, is checked whether those employees are being paid DPF, ETF, regular checks, and to check whether those payments have been made regularly, there can be a liability coming on the contractor because our law tries to protect, especially in relation to superannuation benefits and so on, the benefits of an employee. So in terms of the EPF law, EPF Act and the ETF Act, it says if you have exercised, if you can show that you have exercised due diligence, to that extent, you will be able to avoid responsibility even in relation to subcontract employees. Now, we can take up the argument they are not my employees because they come as subcontractors employees. But in terms of the definition that is given of the employer in the EPF Act, it can extend even to a situation where you have given a subcontractor, even to the principal or the contractor, it can extend if you have failed to exercise due diligence. So how do you exercise due diligence is you have a responsibility to see whether the employees of the subcontractor are being. So you can ask for copies or peruse their documents and see whether they are being paid and whether he is registered under the EPF Act as a person who pays EPF. So I believe I answered that question
Yes,
satisfactorily.
Wajira. Yeah, thank you. That's fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah.
The second question is, um, can a subcontractor use our brand name for personal purposes?
Yeah. Now, subcontractor, the brand name, I believe it is not possible for him to use because the brand name is in with the legal right of a brand name is with a particular organization or a company. So unless you have expressly given that right to use that brand name to a subcontractor, he will not be able to make use of. Of course, it will might have limited requirements for him to, when he's engaging in that particular project or whatever, for him to use it. But apart from that, he will not be, as of a right, he will not be able to use that party's brand name when he's acting as a subcontractor.
If in a situation a subcontractor uses a brand name of a contractor, what are the legal provisions available to the contractor?
Yeah. Now, those will be actually on the basis of, Professor, it will come on the basis of commercial, it will come under the commercial or the contract law. It will not strictly come under the employment law, but the commercial and the contract law. So that is between two parties where you have your rights preserved, protected of a particular brand, where if you have not expressly given in your to the subcontractor to use your brand name, it will come under the contract law, which will protect your brand, and misusing or without authority using that will certainly make that party liable under the contract law in a civil court. So that will be the basis of protecting, will be through civil litigation if it is being done.
Got it. I think for the person who asked this question, I think you can think about intellectual property matters here also. Your
That's right.
brand is
Yes.
your
Yes.
intellectual property. Somebody has taken
That's
it.
right.
Yep.
Yes.
I think the last question, Wajida, for you tonight is, um, let me know if there's any free arbitration facility in Sri Lanka.
Sorry, if you can repeat that question, please.
So Aruna De Silva is asking.
Free any so let free arbitration. Yeah. Now these are not commercial arbitrations. I referred to, what I referred to was industrial arbitration in relation to industrial disputes, in relation to employer-employee relationship. Now, those are not, there are commercial arbitrations also with regard to disputes arising out of the commercial matters. So those in Sri Lanka also there's arbitration center, and those matters go to the arbitration center for commercial arbitrations. We'll say with regard to agreement, breach of agreement, or there's some sort of issue with regard to agreement between two parties. But in relation to employment related matters, between a dispute between employer and employee arising out of that, those disputes are handled through the labor department. In the labor department, there is an arbitration panel and arbitration court, and it is being handled. Now, those ones, still you need to represent your party. You can actually, there's no requirement for legal representation. You don't need to have a lawyer to represent your case in a labor arbitration matter. So if a party wants, he can represent himself at that without any legal representation, and there won't be any cost. But if you retain a lawyer or a party, then of course there will be some sort of cost involved for your payments to make for the lawyer. Yeah.
Got it. Thank you very much, Wajira. I just want to wrap it up, giving a few highlights. I'm not trying to summarize the entire presentation. That was quite overwhelming. This video will be available to all of our participants to go through it and digest all of these contents. But what struck me is that, number one, as an entrepreneur, you have to make sure that you take all of the tools available to you to avoid running into industrial disputes, because that will be a blocker in your development process, right? So make sure you take all of these precautions, right, to avoid industrial dispute. If you find yourself in a situation in an industrial dispute, make sure you take all of the tools, facilities available to you to douse the fire, not to escalate it. Do not let the problem escalate to higher levels. So that is number two. So for that, what Vajira advises you is that you need to have some grievance handling mechanism in your company, right? So individual employees who are working under you, right? There should be a place or a person to go talk to when they find themselves, rightly or wrongly, say, maltreated. So there should be a place or person who listen to these people individually and try to settle the problem as at the early stage. So these things are very important mechanisms you need to have within your startup company. Okay. So mind you, a lot of startups fail in the first year, and maybe 60-70% startups fail in the second year. And some of these industrial disputes we have seen in some of the startups as well. So therefore, it's very serious thing. And also monthly meetings, they're very important. So I can share with you my own experience. I was running the electronics engineering department at Moratour 2015-17. I introduced this monthly meeting with all of our technical officers, not the staff members. Every month I sit with them and listen to their grievances, right? And try to solve all of these things. I was not able to solve all of the problems, but the technical officers gradually built a mindset to believe that, okay, the head is trying to help them, even though he's unable to solve all of their problems. So we were able to work together as a very strong team. And then the technical officers went ahead and they decided to open the labs for extended hours for the students to come and work in the labs without their presence. It wasn't the case earlier. So there are a lot of benefits if you get people who are working under you as your family members. So if you recall what Danika said, same story, repeating. You have to treat them as family members, and the whole team should work as a family. So you have to treat them uh, with ethics and with empathy. I think that is extremely important. If it fails, you have to go to the second phase of resolving industrial problems. And Vajid explained that uh, you have three provisions there. One is the conciliation process, then arbitration, and industrial courts. So you have to be prepared to take even those actions if you cannot actually settle the matters in the early stages. All right. So this is entrepreneurship 101. So that our purpose is to touch your brains and hearts with essential basics, right? That is needed by an entrepreneur to start his journey. And when you find yourself in the future, right, someday in an industrial dispute, you know what you have done wrong and what are your provisions available to you to take action. In that time, you can actually study, you can do your homework and face these situations, and not getting your startup journey seriously interrupted. So that is the whole purpose. So with that, I want to conclude today's session. Vajira, thank you very much again for sharing your time with us. We greatly appreciate it. And for all of our participants, you have been a very nice audience so far. We have only 3 more sessions to go. And there are little changes. We missed 2 of our speakers because of health issues and not being available in the country. I will reschedule those sessions so that we will have to go for 1 additional week. And there's another foreign consultant coming in 30th next Saturday. He has a lot of experience. He's coming from Silicon Valley experiences. Somebody who has worked with Steve Jobs, a lot of experiences. So don't miss next Saturday, Sunday. Right. So that's the management update of the course. It's time to wind up today's session. So thank you very much for joining in and have a good night, everyone.